Presiding Officer, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to update Parliament on the exceptional weather Scotland experienced last week during Storm Éowyn. I would like to begin by expressing condolences to the families and friends of those who have died or been injured as a result of incidents during this storm. I would also like to extend my sympathy to those who have experienced disruption or damage to their businesses and homes as a consequence of the storm. On Tuesday, the 21st of January, the Met Office announced the likely arrival of Storm Éowyn, predicting disruption on Friday and Saturday. By Thursday, the 23rd of January, forecast confidence increased and the Met Office took the serious step of issuing a red warning for wind, covering the Central Belt and southern Scotland. Red weather warnings are issued very rarely and signify not only the high likelihood of severe damage and disruption, but also a significant threat to life. Amber warnings for wind also covered the remainder of the country, underlining the scale of the high winds. The Scottish Government and frontline agencies across Scotland took this threat extremely seriously. Emergency planning and resilience structures were activated across Scotland, including the Scottish Government Resilience Room and the Transport Scotland Resilience Room. Scotland's responders, including emergency services, local authorities and utility companies, quickly mobilised staff to respond to the impacts of the storm. Ministerial meetings of the Scottish Government Resilience Room were held daily from Thursday to Monday, and Cabinet discussed this morning. Ministers continue to receive regular updates on the incident recovery, including restoration of power and the recovery of transport services. On Saturday, the 25th of January, the First Minister also joined a ministerial COBRA meeting to discuss the impacts of Storm Éowyn across the UK. Public advice was issued to support the public in planning for the storm and taking steps to stay safe. Police Scotland issued clear advice to the public not to travel during the storm. We worked quickly with the Met Office, the UK Government and the Northern Ireland Executive to activate the new emergency alerts capability for the first time in Scotland since its launch, and also activated the Scottish Government's Ready Scotland marketing campaign. I am grateful to both the Met Office and Police Scotland for issuing those early and clear warnings, and to the public, who, in following this advice, helped to significantly mitigate the damage which the storm might otherwise have caused. Put simply, by following guidance to stay at home, people have prevented further loss of life. However, no amount of warning could prevent significant damage and disruption from a storm of this scale. Éowyn, as with other recent weather events at home and abroad, are symptoms of the warming world to which we are now adapting. I echo the First Minister's comments over the weekend that the veracity of climate change is with us. We also know these trends are locked in. To prepare people for this challenge this changing climate, we must bring climate resilience to the heart of decision-making across the nation. The Met Office have called Storm Éowyn probably the strongest storm to hit the UK for a decade. With gusts of wind exceeding 100 miles per hour, the entirety of Scotland was covered by weather warnings on Friday, and we saw widespread impacts across the country. 92% of the school estate in Scotland was closed, and all rail, bus and ferry services were cancelled. There were significant impacts across the road network, including fallen trees, power cables, overturned HGVs, as well as road traffic collisions. However, Transport Scotland report that during the red alert period, traffic volumes dropped by 80%. The public listened to and followed the important advice issued by Police Scotland. At its worst, over 130,000 people were reported to be without power. The weather itself meant that it was not always safe to carry out repairs, and frontline agencies established a number of welfare centres to support the most vulnerable. As of the latest update at noon today, 2,538 customers remain off power. Throughout this response, our health and social care partnerships worked hard, hand in hand, with the utility companies to support the most vulnerable individuals, targeting resources to reinstate power to care homes and vulnerable individuals as soon as possible. I would like to thank them for their ongoing efforts and recognise the people in our communities who came together to support vulnerable friends, family and neighbours. The trunk road and motorway network has fully recovered following Storm Éowyn. However, there is a risk of secondary impacts around weakened trees that may come down and debris, and that may still get into the drainage systems, which can lead to further localised disruption until the clear-up is complete. Health and social care services were impacted, with non-essential care packages suspended during the red warning and some non-urgent patient appointments cancelled on Friday, which are being rescheduled. However, thanks to the excellent work and dedication of staff providing health, social care and social work services in our hospitals and communities, as well as the efforts of unpaid carers, the third and independent sectors, there was no significant impact on patient care and services are returning to normal. Forth Valley Royal Hospital was subject to a storm-related power outage on Friday afternoon and was without mains power for approximately 1 hour. Thanks to the efforts of the Health Board and the Power Company, this was quickly resolved and no patient harm was identified. But we are still in the process of recovery, and the impacts of this storm continue to be felt, and indeed may continue to be felt in the coming days and weeks. Over 2,500 customers in Scotland remain without power, and while power companies are working hard towards restoration, the extreme damage caused by Storm Éowyn means that this task is very complex. Whilst in the early period of recovery, power companies were able to make quick wins and restore thousands of customers at a time, they are now dealing with some of the most challenging and remote issues. Recovery operations have continued on the rail network as Scotland's Railway recovers from over 500 incidents associated with the storm. ScotRail and Network Rail are working to reopen lines as quickly and safely as possible, with services being reinstated overnight on the lines to Ayr, Balloch and Paisley Canal. By tomorrow, it is anticipated that the lines to Largs, Weems Bay and Gourock will also be reopened, and the landslip at Hamilton cleared services resumed to Lark Hall. 73% of services were operating earlier today, with this increasing as routes reopen. Many schools suffered damage to infrastructure to varying degrees, as well as a loss of power. However, 99% of schools across Scotland were able to reopen as usual yesterday. Remedial works are ongoing in 16 schools, and 6 local authority early learning and childcare settings remain closed this morning. I do not underestimate the impact that these disruptions have had on families and staff. Presiding Officer, this has been and continues to be an extremely complex and protracted incident. Every business, home and individual was affected by an amber or red weather warning, and I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the organisations and individuals who are working tirelessly to restore normality to people's homes and lives. And I wish to close by paying tribute to the work undertaken by our responder and voluntary organisations to protect the public from emergencies such as this. We must continue to work together to ensure Scotland remains prepared to withstand future storms which come our way.